All right. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum. It is my pleasure to join you again. And this may be the first time, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Tariq Al-Amin. I am the Imam of Masjid Al-Taqwa in Chicago, community and association with the leadership of Imam Warith Deen Mohammed. I am also a student at Bayan, graduate, Islamic graduate school, completing an MDiv in Islamic chaplaincy, looking forward to graduation in May, inshallah. So it's been a rewarding 3 years, been extremely beneficial, made some great connections, learned a lot, and continue to learn. And I'm also the co-founder, executive director of Bridging the Gap, which is a nonprofit organization which focuses on leadership, mentoring, and service. Today, in our presentation, our conversation, we want to talk a bit about community service as healing. That's the topic that we've chosen for today. And inshallah, with God's permission, it will be one that is not only reflective and informative, but one that maybe gives us some different ways of looking at things and some tools in the way that we go about performing and approaching community service and even defining community service. In yesterday's presentation, we talked about leadership. Last night's presentation, the Halakha, we talked about leadership, defining it, modeling it, and making it effective and efficient. Now, today we're looking at this within a community concept, a community framework, recognizing that leadership, it has an expression, and the expression of leadership is always going to be within community. And the community itself, this idea, we put these two words together, community and service. There are two aspects of this. There's the service that the community engages in that is outward facing, and there's the service that community engages in that is inward facing, right? So, think about it like the human body. We eat so that we will have the energy to go out and to work, right? So that the body is properly sustained so that we can complete whatever task, right? We know we need nutrients, we need the benefits of food. So eating is a form of service, right? Eating is a form of service so that we can actually, so it's internal so that we can actually manifest that externally, right? We can put our attention to a task and complete it. Now, this idea of, I want to give you a short story that I think it's a good representation of what community service as healing represents. And this is tied back to leadership as well. So as the work that I've done with Bridging the Gap, my wife and I, we're the founders of it. Give a shout out to Dr. El-Amin. If you're watching, assalamu alaikum. I love you. But we began something during the month of Ramadan about 11 Ramadans ago. And during the month, this is a month of increased charity and service. We began calling volunteers out, and we began something called the lunch pad, right? Lunch PAD, preparation and distribution. So we'd set up 2 big tables inside of the masjid, and we would have stations. Everybody would, you'd have bread here, you'd have cheese, you'd have meat, you'd have your chips, you have your fruit, and water, and maybe another little snack, granola, or something like that. And so you'd have this assembly line, right? We bring all of the food in. People are stationed. People are bread. You got the bread folks. They're slapping, condiments on the bread, passing it over to the meat, to the cheese, and fold it up, put it in a bag. So on and on and on. So we get maybe 100, 150 of these bags that are done. And I should, just to give you a little bit more context. So we're on the southeast side of Chicago. This is a working poor. And that actually, we could really go off on a tangent just to talk about how this is almost an oxymoron in a sense, right? The idea of being working and still being impoverished, right? That says a whole lot. That really is the object of the community service. So we're in a community. It's a working, lower socioeconomic community, and this is the effort. So we're passing out. We're here to pass out the food. Now, I want to also mention to you that this is not an occasion for proselytization. This is not where we're giving so that as an invitation necessarily, as an explicit invitation to Islam, right? We're not telling people, hey, here, take this lunch and go pick up a pamphlet, right? We are doing this in the basest explanation and description of what Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what he describes when I ask, say, what is Islam? Islam is to give the salams and feed the people, right? That is the distillation. Give the salams, right? Assalamu alaikum. May the peace that only God can give be upon you. And here's something to eat. Now, that, of course, you can go deeper with that, right? There's the physical food and there's also the spiritual food. There's the intellectual food, right? So we want to feed people on all levels. But in this instance, we are passing out lunches. Now, we get to the point now I want to talk to you about the group. So the group that we have, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So we started this program during Ramadan and we've continued it. People felt so good being a part of this, right? They felt something healed within themselves. They felt a void being filled in being able to give back, to be of service. They realized the gratitude of the community, the external community, right? And we're giving food to, these are people that are not members of the Masjid. These are non-Muslims. These are Christians. These are, whatever their faith. We didn't ask them what they were. These are human beings. These are fellow community members. But the gratitude and the appreciation was overwhelming. And that might seem selfish to some to do something because you appreciated the gratitude, but there's nothing wrong with the reward of, that good feeling that you get from doing something that is appreciated. And even if people don't appreciate it, we know that Allah is the ever appreciative, right? Allah. So anyway, we keep doing the program because there's a demand for it. The community, the external community needs it, as well as the participants. So as we're doing this, a local, one of the universities, their MSA, they join us. And their MSA, their Muslim Student Association, is primarily Desi, Arab. I don't think there were any African American, maybe one or two, right? So this is a group that was not accustomed to being in this particular space, in that particular space, right? They're not accustomed to being, as we say, in the hood. But as they came, as they stood and manned these stations, as they put together, the lunches, stood out, energetic, youthful energy. There's something beautiful and contagious about youthful energy because there's optimism that's embedded in it. There is this belief that, what I'm doing matters. I have an opportunity to actually change the world. Youth are, that stage of life, youth are fearless. Right? They're fearless until they are taught otherwise, until, they conform to this, apathy. I digress. So these young people, they would come first and third Saturday of the month, every month, and they came with regularity, without fail. They came with beautiful spirits, with smiles, with energy. And I recall one day, one of the community members, this older brother, Eric, he said to one of the younger sisters, young Daisy sister, she's got a hijab on, dressed and out there working, passing food out. And he says to her, and there's another brother she's with, and he goes, I don't care what they say about y'all on the news. I don't care what they say about y'all. Y'all our family. We love you all. And I heard that and I said, wow. And I'm actually really feeling kind of overcome right now just thinking about that. This is an individual. This is a brother who had limited contact with Muslims other than us. And you got to understand the differences between, because most black folk in a city know somebody that's Muslim, have somebody that's Muslim in their family, right? So that's not a huge stretch. And neither are the pictures, the images that they see that are anti-Islam associated usually with African-American Muslims, right? It's normally, Arab, Desi. There's this phenotypical representation that they want to give, that this is Islam. And this is something that you should be wary of, something that you should distrust, something you should hate, right? But this is who is giving them this warm greeting. This is the representation standing next to the Muslim that you know, the Muslim that you are familiar with. And they are passing you this food. They're giving you these bags of food. And they're consistent. And they're not asking you for anything. This was a moment of healing. This was a moment healing a false public perception, healing an implanted suspicion, healing something that was against the representation given of a beautiful way of life, right? That recognizes and affirms the dignity of all humanity. And he's saying, I don't care what they say, because I have experienced firsthand your love. I have experienced firsthand the commitment that you have to serve. I have experienced firsthand your willingness to take from your time and to come and give something. Now, this, as I say, in this community and this effort, a lot of times we are not aware of the depths of the depths of hunger, the depths of poverty. We assume that because people have homes that they live, that they're not living outdoors, that they got everything they need. That is not the case. We'd have people that were taking 5, 6, 7 bags sometimes. They're feeding their families for 3 or 4 days, right? These are seniors sometimes that are, this is their food, maybe for the week, right? So I share that story first to illustrate the importance of consistency, number one, and second to illustrate the importance of addressing a need, right? Service that is not connected to a need is not service. All right. So however we serve, it has to be connected to what is important, to what is missing, to what is needed. Right. And the third thing is service that is not transactional is not service. Right. Service that is transactional is an investment. If you're giving to receive, that's an investment. So the healing, when we eat, going back to this idea of eating, when we eat, we don't eat with the idea that that our food is going to, it's going to give us something, or maybe that's not a good metaphor. But the idea being is that we have to be invested in those that we serve. We have to be invested in people if we're going to actually be effective. All right. So the other thing that we want to talk about with regard to community service as healing is understanding where the repair is needed. We talk about this idea. We have not sent messengers. Except to give the good news, to be of those who give the good news and who warn. Right. So those who believe and who practice this mending, right? Those who reconcile, who repair, on them is no fear, nor shall they grieve. They do not exist with sadness, right? Now, what's important, kind of going back to this particular ayat, the Arabic of it, we're talking about a community. There's two ways that we can kind of break this down. It says, illa mubashirina wa mundirina. Right? That is a plural. Right? Those who warn. Right? We don't send messengers except to be of those who warn, those who give the good news, mubashirina, and those who warn. Now we could say, yes, the prophets are all aligned, they're all apart, right? There's a collective group of them. But we also can look and see that it is not just the prophets who are sharing the good news. It is those who align themselves with the prophet. Right? It is not just the prophet who warns. It is those who align themselves with the prophet. Right? So there's a community aspect in this idea of giving the good news, of warning, of admonishing. Right? So those who believe, those who reconcile themselves. And this part of reconciliation is relative to the idea of the healing, the potential healing that is possible through community service. But I don't think it's enough to simply remind you or remind myself of what I think we already know, which is community service is good. Yes, we know that, right? Community service can have a healing effect. Yes, it can, right? It deserves for us to ask the question, where are we hurting? First, where are we hurting? In any application of an answer, it first begins with a question. We go to the doctor. The doctor doesn't just give us a prescription, right? The doctor asks questions. Where are you hurting? Does this hurt? Can you do this? Whole litany of questions. So we have to do the same thing. And as I said, this is an internal process and an external process. So I want to start within the community itself, right? Within the community. So, dear Muslims, neighbors, this is actually something, human beings, fellow human beings, this is actually something that it goes beyond the strictures and the structure of a faith tradition. This is a human concern. All right, so we have communities everywhere, but bringing it back to, as a Muslim community, we think about where are we hurting? What are the areas where we need service, where we can benefit internally from service? First, I'm going to go back to our ability to be honest about what actually hurts. Let that sink in. Think about what actually hurts. And here is one of our biggest opportunities, because if we are not able to be truthful with ourselves about where we are hurting, where we are falling short, what we need from one another, then what we give externally is going to be compromised. What we give externally is going to be limited. It's not going to have that spirit that says that I am here because I am here for you. I am here simply, for the reward that only Allah can give me. I'm invested in you. We don't get to that point if we are not whole within ourselves. So as a community, there are a number of issues around the country, around the world, as a matter of fact, that we don't deal with, we don't talk about, and we suffer from within as individuals, and we suffer within our families, and we bring that same suffering into the masjid. Right? And we're trying to serve, we're trying to volunteer, we're trying to lead, we're trying to do all of these things while we are hurting. We're trying to do all these things, hopping on one foot, one arm tied behind the back, holding back tears, because we have not dealt with those issues where we are actually hurting. So I want to be specific, but I don't want to get too granular. Okay, so I'll say this. We have concerns, a societal concern around domestic violence, right? Intimate partner violence. It is a reality. The statistics are abysmal. I believe it's like 3 out of 4 women have had some type of experience with intimate partner violence. My numbers, it might be off, but it's a ridiculously high number, right? But when we think about bringing that type of energy, that reality, or as Muslims, us not being immune from that reality, right? And furthermore, not talking about it, not addressing, not putting programs, not having resources in place where the masjid is a representation of a healing space, not just a space where you come and you get a khutbah, where you can take a class, but a space where you can actually experience healing, men and women, right? Because quite often what we don't talk about is we don't talk about those men who have those behaviors. How can they engage this idea of aslaha, this idea of reconciling behavior, of repairing damage, right? Mending their conduct so that they are no longer causing harm, but they are supporting health, they're supporting well-being. All right, that's a very small group. That's a group that's really not addressed. And also, I mean, and quite obvious, making space for those women, for those sisters who are enduring that difficulty, and giving resources to them to offer protection. One of the most unfortunate things during this pandemic, during COVID, was that while for many people it was a time to enjoy their homes, a time to kind of step back, be able to work from home for those who are able to do so, and slow down. For many, this was a time of increased hostility. This was a time where the respite that was enjoyed by leaving the home, being able to get out, was actually lost, right? It was lost. The homes that they sought refuge from became prisons for them. All right, and I'm pointing out one particular circumstance, not with a solution, but simply saying that if we don't recognize where the problems are, then we don't know where we should be giving our efforts. All right, so it's incumbent upon us, whether we're talking about domestic violence, whether we're talking about mental health, whether we're talking about poverty, whether we're talking about, there's a whole list, right? We know the list. There's a whole list of things. And if we're not dealing with those things within our masajid, then we will not be on the road to healing, right? So offering those programs, having conversations around them where people can actually share, realize that they have communities, supportive communities. Oh, I didn't mention substance abuse, right? This is an issue for many in our community, right? Suicide. That's a mental health issue. We don't talk about, right? It's something we talk about maybe in the parking lot, maybe outside, maybe at someone's home. We mention it, but the healing that the masjid as a community has a potential offer, quite often it is lost because we suffer in silence. We suffer in silence. We don't raise our voices. But the reality is, because we are not immune from the pressures and the realities of society, we are also experiencing every single one of the issues that exist within society. These issues are in our homes, in our families, and maybe even within our own selves. So that's the beginning. Healthy communities, right, are communities that serve first are going to serve themselves. Charity begins at home and spreads abroad. Right? It's performative when all we do, we come together for one day to go out. I'm going to pass out some food. Right? And then the rest of the week or the 2 weeks or whatever, I'm going to avoid you because my life is not meeting up to the standards. I don't think I'm the best representation of this beautiful tradition. And I don't want anybody to see me. My family, no, I don't want you to meet my family because my family is in shambles. I don't want you to come to my house. My house is in shambles. Right? So that kind of points to where some of that healing has to begin. It has to begin inside. Right? So one thing that I have seen here, in this really unique space. And I think for as impressed as I am in this space right now, and it is impressive. If you're not acquainted with the story, can I ask a question? Do we have, is there a link people can look at the about, the story, the story of AMI? Okay, yeah. Go to the website. Go to AMI's website and look at the story. And as impressive as it is, dare I say that your best is in front of you. Right? Your best is in front of you. We want to talk about a particular point of the topic. I like to go under the structures. Right? So as a builder, I'm a big foundation person. So when I say community services healing, I'm thinking about what are the things that undergird communities, each of those things, community service and healing, right? So in terms of community and our ability to provide service, we have to look at what is the capacity? How is that formed? So we're going to talk a bit about volunteerism. And this is a hard topic, right? Because unlike the janazah, right? The janazah, we know matter of fact, I think we probably look at our community efforts much like we look at the janazah, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't. See, the janazah is something that is incumbent, and for our non-Muslim viewers and guests, the janazah is our funeral rites, the funeral prayer. And it is a right of every Muslim, right, to receive the janazah. And it is incumbent upon, it is a responsibility of the community left, to which that buries you, right? The community that is existed around. But everybody in the community does not have to attend, right? As long as the janazah is performed, the prayer, the body is washed, is shrouded, the janazah prayer is offered, and the body is interred, is placed into the ground, then the community obligation is fulfilled. All right? The community obligation is fulfilled. 4 or 5 people were part of the janazah. Maybe just 3 people that were a part of the janazah, of taking on that responsibility. And a community of 10,000 has the obligation fulfilled. 3 people have fulfilled the obligation of 10,000. And there are among us, sometimes we look at volunteering in the same way. We think about the service that needs to be performed, that is being performed by the community, and we say it's a community of 1,000, and we say, okay, it's okay for these 4 or 5 people to perform the work. And the community, and we are absolved of our responsibility because these 4 or 5 people did the work. Does that sound right? But is that often how things operate? Absolutely. Unfortunately, it is. And maybe we just don't think about these things. And that's the point of reminding. It's not reminding to make anyone feel less than. It is reminding with the point of making people think about what their capacity and what their capabilities are. Reminding with the intent of asking a person, how much of that responsibility are you bearing? Tremendous problem. It's a tremendous opportunity. The 4 or 5, the minority that invest themselves, that give their time, that come out, to pass out food, to pass out Ramadan boxes, to pass out clothing, to visit the sick. You know, it's not sufficient and it's not fair. It's not sufficient and it's not fair. Yes, we take pride, we take pleasure, right? We take a sense of sense of pride in a way. Not arrogant pride, but a pride of association. When somebody says, well, where do you go pray? You know, where's your masjid at? Oh, my masjid is over here. And then you start running down, well, what do y'all do over there? And you start running down a list of things that other people do, but that you take a sense of pride in because you have an association. Not that you're involved in those things, not that you're giving time to those things, but there's a pride that comes with association. But that pride is earned when you give of yourself. When you give of yourself, when you make time, when you make space. There's this old saying that says, many hands make light work. All right? Many hands make light work. So there's a problem. There's a problem. And like I said, this is not a beat you up session. Okay? But we want to be honest with ourselves. Making reference again, we talked one of the questions last night. Sister Naima and I were just speaking about it. But one of the questions last night was the qualities of leadership, right? And communities, effective communities, that's a shared characteristic, right? These are shared characteristics, those qualities. And one of them was how many people feel like they're honest, right? And honesty is very subjective. Number one, only Allah knows, right? Sometimes even we don't know. But the attempt, the hope is that we are being honest, right? And that means that we have to be honest with ourselves, right? The healing that begins in any effort the healing begins within. And that can happen. It's like going to the doctor and your head is throbbing. Your head is an actual 10. Right? They give you the little pain chart. Circle where you're at. And you go, well, I'm at a 2. And the doctor says, well, just maybe you should get more sleep. You'll be okay. But in reality, you're on your way to an aneurysm. Right? You're on the way to having a blood vessel burst. Right? To your life ending or being compromised. But not being honest about that pain, not being honest about the level with those who have the ability to help. And sometimes the help comes from within. We have to be able to be honest with ourselves. Am I doing everything that I can do or should do? First question. Second thing is, am I a part of a group? Am I part of a community of also like-minded people? Right, because we rely on each other to hold us accountable, and that runs counter to this idea that there are no rules, nothing. There are no defining lines. That runs counter to, and you hear this in rap lyrics. I don't know why this became such. Well, I know why. That's another conversation. But only God can judge me. If you're familiar with that, and of course we do know this, right? Allah is the judge, right? But we are responsible for what we do and what we say. And when we do those things in the company of others, we will be, and we should be held accountable, right? So there's also this idea. I'm saving trees here, so give me 1 second. That was another point I wanted to bring up. Okay. So the natural orientation of the human being, it is in community. Right? It's not as an individual. We hear there's an old saying, no man is an island, right? That everybody, we need this connection. We need community. We need community life. Our greatest capability and possibilities exist in communication and exist in relationship to others. I've been waxing on for a minute. I want to bring you all in and ask just a few questions in terms of that idea of the needs assessment that precedes effective service. What are your thoughts on that? And are there what are the particular areas that you have found the most need in? And with regard to service, and give me one internally and then one externally.
Okay, what we did, like in September, we created a survey for our congregation, to ask them, okay, how do you feel about, AMI as an organization, as a place of worship, our programs, our religious, instruction, etc. And from that, we got comments, letting, us know, what types of, programs they want to see here. Also, how can we make them feel, comfortable, more welcome, things like that. Externally, that's a good, question, because, we did not, do a survey, externally. It was strictly, internal, use. So I can't answer the external part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but internally, you saw there was room for education,
yes,
inclusion,
yes,
and feeling welcome. Okay.
I would say also the number of the only thing I could see, just the interest of the attendees. The more people you have, the more you find participation. The more people you have, the more you find volunteers. I think there is a lack of enthusiasm. I keep saying it again. Yesterday I said we need to increase people to be enthused. I mean, a lot of attendance is going down. Definitely, we know COVID has something to do with it. So we have to re-energize. So there is no energy, there is no enthusiasm in the community. I mean, partly it could be because we have many masajid, so each masjid has smaller group, so each one is kind of round. It could be the number of the Muslims is not as big as in Chicago or as in Texas. So we do have challenges ahead of us in terms of growing this community, I believe. I mean, that's one thing. So I would say we used to have a monthly potluck where you start introducing, I think we should re-energize that and start getting a list of people who's coming, who's attending, and just giving them more programs. I think the more programs we have, the more education. It's just, as I said, the battery is very low now of the community. I would say it needs to be recharged.
Okay. So attendance, the logic is kind of that there will always be a minority of people doing the work, but it doesn't have to be a smaller group if the sampling is larger, right? So, I can definitely see that, and I want to put you at rest and let you know. And I'm not speaking for all of Chicago, but we have a lot of the same challenges, within my masjid, the masjid I'm associated with, in terms of increasing volunteerism, increasing, the enthusiasm. I think this is a shared problem, unfortunately, right now. They say like 15% of Muslims actually attend a mosque. That's pretty dismal, right? But if that's the reality, I think that's also kind of instructive in maybe how to how to proceed, right? Because we know we can't simply just go with one formula, right? And when we think about this idea of meeting people where they are, sometimes it's outside of the masjid. Sometimes it is. We have, prior to COVID, we would have these bowling outings. We go bowling. A few times we did after Jummah, and because there is such a part of the healing is the self-doubt, right? There's a self-doubt that a lot of Muslims, I think a lot of people in general, but Muslims, we're not immune to that they carry with them. It's this burden of performance, the burden of, and I think this may be a lot more relevant with maybe converts, reverts, and maybe, and like I said, I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush here. But because sometimes the masjid is not looked at as a safe space, right? And people don't want the expectation of perfection. So there's really putting people at ease, and sometimes that has to be done outside of the masjid to get people into the masjid. So those events, we're going to go and we're going to go to the arcade, or we're going to go bowling. We're going to have dinner. We're going to go out for dinner. We're going to do something that is non-threatening, that's relaxed, but allows us to get to the most critical element of healing, and that's love. Right? You go where you feel affirmed. You go where you feel protected. Those are the safe spaces. Even and you don't think about being perfect. Nobody thinks about being perfect when they go home. In your home, that is a safe space. The people there, inshallah, those are people that love you, that respect you. All right, and we want our masajid to be the same way. We want people to come in and feel affirmed. We want them to feel seen. And to that point, I give an example of that you'll find in many. I don't know, because I haven't been to many white churches, but I've been to African American churches, and they have hospitality committees. I don't think they call them committees; they call them ministries, right? Or welcoming committees, and their whole job, the people in that committee, the whole job is to, new person comes in, is to address that person, speak to him. How are you doing? It's genuine, but the idea for the person to feel welcome, that's a place for a lot of people. And you all give me your thoughts on this. I know as an African American Muslim, if I go into a masjid I've never been before and nobody gives me salams, that sits with me in a different kind of way. I don't feel wanted. Like, okay, this the last time I'll be back here. So that matters. What are you all's thoughts on that? On in terms of that being an element of creating welcoming spaces?
It's important. It really is. I know we welcome, on Fridays.
Yeah.
But that's like, unofficial type of welcome.
Sure.
But for us, and that's a great, idea, to make, people feel, special, when they, enter here. That's a great thought.
Yeah.
Actually, like right now when I came, I saw so many cars outside. I said, oh my gosh, maybe he brought his people. Maybe there's a lot of money. So then I said, okay, no, that's something God came in. And then they have 5K.
Yeah.
For me, I say, wait a minute, how could they have 5K? Why can't we organize a 5K, as you just said?
Yeah.
So this is
Absolutely.
I think we need ideas to start flourishing. We need somebody to start maybe having the phone I don't know, and start calling people, say we have this event, would you guys like to come? You're right, if we sit there, I don't think they're gonna come. I mean, just seems like we need to put that something for them to come. I'm sure it may be, of course right now we don't have official imam for this AMI. If and when, if they get one that's supposed to be the one, maybe he needs to go out, do outreach, maybe go visit the people in their homes, maybe make phone calls, or maybe doing the whole with the AMI board, do, as I said, activities, maybe do iftar or do something. We need to do something, unless otherwise it's just like, as I said, I mean, it's like almost we need to, it's dead sometimes. You feel like it's discouraged, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the other thing, maybe there's external factors. We don't know. Maybe just the world economy pressure. Two parents are working, some working at night. I think that has something to do with just the family activity. I mean, I don't want to blame that, but there are some other I don't want to just blame it. They're sitting home. They don't want to come. I'm sure you might find other reasons why people are not coming here and there. But it would be nice, and as I said earlier yesterday, maybe this month of Ramadan might energize some people, and this is where to tap and say, guys, okay, we would like you guys to sign up. You remember when you just said this? Some people, they don't work because they're not asked.
Yeah.
You know, just like you may ask them and they say, okay, I'll come, just because they figure out you don't need me or something. Just try to ask, and sometimes you might find. You know, I mean, I've been asked to do activities, and I've been fulfilling. Whether even the brother, Jamal Daoud, when he was here, and if he goes to vacation or travels, he will tell me, "Can you go film for me or for this event or do something?" And I did cover for him so many occasions and events and activities. I feel like, you know, maybe if he didn't ask me that day or something, maybe I would not do it, because he asked me to fulfill. So I think the more we ask people, maybe the more they will come.
Yeah.
In your opinion, you know, would you think that, you know, we would do, or that, you know, we should, you know, rely on the board to create a welcoming committee, a hospitality committee, you know, rather than leave that to the duties, you know, of an imam?
In my opinion, and I realize they may not have heard. So what you just said, in your opinion, should you all leave the formation of a hospitality committee to the board, or leave that as a function of the imam? Right, once you all bring one on. My opinion is that that's actually something that is best generated by the board, because what you'll see a bunch of things that sound like this is great to have the imam do that. Like the imam should be a part of that. He should support that mission, and whenever possible, be a part of it. But having other people, and not even be the head of it, right? But have the board says, okay, look, we're going to set this up, and that's another opportunity to bring other people in. I think the more opportunities for people to use their talents. We just had breakfast. Nice, really good, nice little space. Shout out to Jimmy's. Was it Jimmy's Eggs? Jimmy's Eggs. Nice spot. But what I was really impressed with is, and I'm always mindful of the disposition of your waiters, the wait staff, your host. I think that's a better way, not just waiter, your host. And there's an ethic to hosting. right? There's an ethic to that disposition. And the brother was, just welcoming. He was affable, had a really, just really, really nice disposition. And he said he'd been doing it for 11 years, right? There are people that their gift is in connecting and inviting and making other people feel welcome, making other people feel at home, right? That's a particular, you can learn it, but some people just have that about them. And you have people like that sitting that come into they're coming to Jummah every week. That's a part of their spirit. And they're just waiting to be called to say, look, I need you and you and you, come on over here. We're starting this effort and we need you to be a part of it and to help lead it. But one of the worst things, we talked about this, one of the worst things that you can do, to give an example I did earlier, which is if there's a fire, if you say there's a group of people, a medical emergency, and you say, hey, somebody call an ambulance, and it'll be 20 people looking at each other, right? So the direction is point, you call the ambulance, that's your job, and that person takes ownership of it, right? What's the old saying? I'm going to mess it up, so I'm not going to say it. Something to the degree of somebody didn't do it because they thought anybody did it, and anybody didn't do it because they thought nobody did it, and nobody did it because they thought anybody could do it, or everybody, something like that. But the point was, we often, if we're not assigned or given an opportunity, an individual invitation, that's the difficult part. That's the job, is making the invitation specific, reaching out to people, making those phone calls individually. The group text is minimally effective. The email blast, even less. But the individual phone call, the heart to heart, hearing a person's voice, shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye, we need you, that's effective. It bears a lot more than any other. There's no replacement for that. But the problem is, you need a committee just for that, right? Because we're trying to do everything else. You're like, man, I don't have time to make 20 phone calls. So maybe that's the committee we all need. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna say we're gonna start a new committee. We need the invitation committee. Wow, we are moving right along. All right, so. Before we come to time, so we recognize that we have internal community service needs and external, opportunities. The question would be is what is the ratio, right? Because it's like weight training. If you lift too much too often, if you exercise the same muscles too often, there are people you can injure yourself. If you overexert, you can injure yourself. You'll be in a point where you're out of the game. You're in a point of disrepair. So what's the ratio between internal and external?
In terms of volunteers or what we do?
I'm saying in the terms of defining service as what is needed to keep you healthy, and then service as what is needed to enrich and to keep the communities that you're serving healthy as well. So what's the ratio?
Maybe 1/3.
So you would say 30-70?
Yeah.
Which way is it?
30 internal and 70 external.
That's kind of high. I appreciate you answering. I appreciate you answering.
Well, or maybe somewhere low. Somewhere I'm sure 10-90 maybe or something.
Yeah, that's hard because, we have, our congregation, obviously, which is paramount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have, our partners as well. So, good question as to, it's not 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
We do more, internally, obviously.
Right.
Nizam, what do you think? Is it like 60-40?
So define the question again, just
Yeah.
because I want to make sure. So you're saying the ratio between services inside versus services outside?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, before we used to do 50-50 at one point. I used to see a lot of activities outside, but now lately it's moving more toward activities inside. So I would say probably now we do probably 60-40 if I want to look at it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the question. Yeah, I was thinking about like internal versus external, how much you do it for other people. I don't know, I must have misunderstood before, but I would say right now we do more internal services.
Right.
More than, we don't have like a group that they go for soup kitchen or maybe down services. Yeah, I think in general in Omaha, the Muslim representation for outside activity for the Muslims, if you're looking for serving non-Muslims,
Yeah.
I don't think we have a lot of, it's very low. I mean, this is a lack. I know Muslim in general in the United States, they are moving more toward, serving other communities. Like when Katrina hits, I heard a lot of people, especially in Louisiana, Muslim media, made a big, headway to do. I mean, there's a lot of times they go in services, but locally in Omaha, I would say we're not really doing our own portion of serving. I mean, one example, they have this garden. How many people from the AMI go to the garden?
Oh,
They have
that's a
international
handful.
garden.
Yeah, that's just a handful, compared in ratio to members, from Temple and, countryside, so on, any, Tuesday, or Sunday, you may have, 1 to 2 people.
Yeah.
In the Muslim community versus 12.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the numbers.
It's more of them.
Yeah, there's more of them, then there's going to be more representing. So I think that's how I would look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? And I asked the question, and I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer for that, right? I think it's going to be specific to the institution, right? But the idea being that the first responsibility that the body has to itself is to maintain itself, right? Which means that retention, and growth, those are paramount. And those are things that are going to be served, number one, looking at how are we dealing with the inward facing opportunities and challenges? We talked about having these upcoming mental health, seminars and, different opportunities available. Huge, right? That's a huge opportunity. And that's going to be really attractive to folks. The service element, that's attractive to people as well, right? The issue is always, it comes down to the invitation, making sure that it gets to people, individually, and hopefully there's a positive response with it, right? But I agree that the internal, I would say it's probably like maybe even 70-30, maybe even 70-30, because it's not so much just the quantity. It's the, in terms of the external, it's the consistency. It can be a small effort, right? But as long as it's consistent. And then it's also where we have to recognize in terms of not overdoing it, not injuring ourselves, recognizing what our capacity is. And capacity grows when you have, as you grow, so that becomes a matter of, we can do this, we got to hold this off. But
I think one of the challenges I
we're there.
think about it is people work 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Then comes the weekend where you have then they will say, it's a weekend. This weekend is for family.
Yeah.
So one thing that I believe that I'm struggling with is saying, well, you're always running, what is your time for your family? So a lot of people, they don't do a lot of activities over the weekend because they're burned out. They say, the weekend is for me. So I remember one time I kind of was listening to a lecture like this, say the best way to do it is to bring your family to join the activities that you're doing on a weekend. This way you are combining a family time / voluntary or service time. I think that's maybe one thing that, an opinion that say, yeah, you don't have to leave your wife when you're doing something over the weekend, why not she join you?
Yeah.
And maybe that's another thing is newlywood, if they have young children, they will have time to, so there's a lot of that. Third thing is we're not born, they're not like a first or second, third generation or second, we're still probably, in AMI, probably most of the people they're serving are not born here.
Okay.
Probably, and that, so maybe who knows, future generation things could change, but there's so many challenges I would say in the Muslim community that we are up facing.
Yeah.
Another, challenge too is like a lot of the volunteer opportunities. The two congregations have a lot of retirees who volunteer. Okay. So we don't have that here as of yet. Okay, we do have a younger congregation, a congregation that is more, working still, and like Nizam said, okay, 5 days a week or weekends, are theirs, and that has a lot to do with, the number of
Activities or
people, okay, who like to volunteer, like, with the garden project, or, or with, clothing drives, etc.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. The modern challenges.
Yeah.
And then being inclusive, to be able to say the family is a center, come in, or there's a space for everybody and people without families, right? So, it can't be to the point where you feel like you can only come if you got a family, So it's a lot to balance. And these are great challenges, and every challenge is an opportunity. And I'll say, again and again, as long as we are facing those challenges with optimism, and we got a group, we're not going it alone, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. So, alhamdulillah, we have come to the close. We're going to close with Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr.